are you familiar with like the Lesser Keys of Solomon and the Goetia and the Goetic demons?
No, no, tell us.
So it's and a lot of Christian or Catholics might not like to hear something like this, but there's a lot of correlation in terms of like spiritual practice between these kind of like goetic spirits and like the Catholic saints and everything. The same way that you pray to specific like a specific Catholic saint will be you'll pray to them for like a specific end or a specific need.
Mm.
This saint, will help you with this, and this saint will kind of help you with that. It's the same way with the Goetic demons. Specific demons and specific entities that all have their own sigils and their own legions underneath them will be able to grant you certain things. Some are you'll write out their sigil and you'll do sigil rituals and sigil magic to a specific demon for success in the arts. And there's one very particular one in Hollywood for the arts. And some you will write sigils to and do rituals for in order to gain hidden knowledges of the sciences and this and that. So
Can you explain what
uh,
that specific sigil is for Hollywood
yeah, it's a demon named Paimon.
and what
And
happens?
he's well. Have you ever seen the movie Hereditary?
I have not. No.
It's okay, and they pronounce his name as Payman
Okay.
in it, which is like it doesn't quite have the same vibrato in the chest, if you ask me,
Mhm.
which I think is kind of necessary if you're trying to compel one of these entities.
Mm.
Um, but Paimon is a lesser demon. He has I think 200 legions underneath him, which if you kind of like think about the strength of different demons, uh, you have a a specific demon with a specific sigil and a specific name that does a specific thing, and his rank kind of in the hierarchy, he will have more or less legions of kind of like nameless, faceless. Think of them just basically as uh, the subconscious flow of energy, and the more or less they have is typically in reference to how more or less powerful that individual demon is.
Interesting. So people are asking him for what, and when it comes to Hollywood.
Uh, just creative success.
Okay.
Um, it's not unlike praying for protection over yourself or praying for success to a specific saint or whatever for success in a sports game or like whatever.
Hmm.
It's a little more involved in terms of the ritual work, um, and can it I can't say that I don't participate in rituals like this, even though I know people that have, um, because I think when it comes to spell casting and when it comes to ritual work, your odds of it being pointed and successful is imagine you're driving down the highway and you flick a cigarette out the window and you're trying to land it inside a Dixie cup from like 80 miles an hour. uh, that's about your chances of having like a precise reaction to your ritual. And on the flip side of that, there's the opportunity of that cigarette ember to land in a bush, or
Hmm.
to land on the side of the road and a demon pigeon from the void eats it and chokes and dies or something. Any number of things can happen once you flick something out the window and set something in action.
Right.
And I think more times than not, it's never worth it.
Interesting. So you're saying, is this kind of why you avoided these rituals? Because that you can have a ritual or do the sigil and it be successful. It's a small chance of successful, but just doing it all just sends out some sort of negative energy, and you don't know where it's going to end up. And
Exactly.
does
Yeah,
this? And do you
it's
believe it
sloppy
comes?
and reckless,
Does it come
and
back to you? Does the
especially
negativity?
after leaving Satanism and realizing that there is this immaterial space
Hmm.
that overlaps with our own. and it affects us and we affect it, um, your thoughts and your actions have consequences. Um, and if we believe that there is some sort of afterlife, I do believe that those thoughts and those actions will be taken into consideration on um, the where and the what of what's to come. Um, yeah,
Is that something you feel now, or did you feel that then in terms of the afterlife?
I felt it then at a lower resolution,
Hmm.
and I feel like I feel it now at a higher resolution. At the time, I felt like yes, my thoughts and actions have consequences. However, so long as I avoid this or I avoid that in general, I will be fine. And
Interesting.
otherwise, any action that I take uh, in the world is of otherwise little consequence.
Hmm.
But it's becoming more and more clear that I don't know. I think that the the Abrahamic monotheisms in Christianity specifically that I kind of like wrote off as before probably have more credence to them than I once gave credit to.
Yeah, it's interesting that despite what you were reading about the material world being the ultimate world, there was something in you telling you like there might be greater consequences beyond the material world.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, there I've only had experiences since that have bolstered that belief. Um, and so like I'm not a delivered person. I'm not a baptized person. I'm still kind of trying to detangle and decouple myself with the void, I guess, in many respects.
Mm.
Um, and I also have um, no arrogant thought that I have it figured out at this point. Like it's almost like the more I've learned, I understand, the less that I obviously know. And I've had a couple experiences I feel with the divine that were both terrifying and humbling, um, that have put me in my place. And it's as if I see uh, I can see a light at the end of the tunnel at this point, and I'm definitely trying to make my way there, but I'm not, and I recognize that.
Where were these experiences? Did they happen after the stuff in Hollywood or while you were in Hollywood?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, and some including psychedelics, which I don't necessarily advocate for everybody, but that is something that is often utilized in ritual work, and that's also not just an occult thing. I mean, indigenous shamans
Oh
and
yeah.
ayahuasca tribes of the Amazon have also done the same, uh, using psychedelics through spiritual work.
So
Um,
let's put a pin in that conversation for just a moment, for a little bit, about the experiences with the divine, and then move from the Luciferianism to to your travels, I guess. Unless we're skipping over a lot, and you can tell me to going to California and what you experienced there. Are we missing like? Is there anything big that happens between the switch to Luciferianism and Hollywood?
no, that lines up pretty well,
And you do, and
because being
you stick with the
coming to
Luciferianism.
Hollywood. Again, I thought like I landed in a very good spot here, with very easy access to uh, theosophical societies than Manly P. Hall's Philosophical Research Society, um, as well as I had a couple contacts from uh, the Satanic Temple back in Detroit who were out in LA and kind of like in with the what people would understand kind of as the film industry, music industry, underground, occultist, indulgent kind of like scene. Um, so I was able to kind of like see both and try and find my place within both, only to kind of realize that they were both just not for me.
When you is this your first time being surrounded by people in the physical world that are into all this stuff?
Yes, yes, it was.
And I guess you're probably pretty stoked in the beginning to be like, I'm around these people who are into we share interests, and see the same, have the same worldview. What was
Yes.
good about it, other than having what you felt like was a good community in the beginning? What were the good things that you felt at the time that were happening because of all of this?
Um, well, I was naive. My initial thought, like my whole interest in getting into occultism was I felt that this subject matter was objectively the most interesting thing we could try to investigate while here on this earth. Like
Hmm.
what is our existence? Like what is our place in the universe? And like what are these forces that we can't see, and the implications of all that. And so like I was an eager student always. And I thought coming out here, I was going to meet a bunch of other eager students who were just as stoked about, the mysteries of the unknown and uncovering these things as I was.
Mm.
Um, but that, necessarily wasn't the case. Uh, some of the good things about it, when I got introduced to people within the film industry that um, I could tell kind of had this occult bent, and it's not very difficult to point these people out if you kind of like speak the language and can understand their imagery. Like they will give you this wink and a nod. And so I met some producers mostly, and I will say this is mostly in the in doing music videos. So they were tangentially, they were like hybrid film industry, music industry people.
Hmm.
Because the music industry is, just as, it's just as pervasive in that industry, if not more.
Right.
Um, so I was having dinners with these people that liked to hear me talk about these kind of things. And I thought that they all found it very interesting and were eager about the research and all that kind of stuff. Um, I went to a couple of these sort of, you know, parties where you have to have a little password to get in, and the little exclusive stuff that makes you feel kind of cool. um, and it was immediate there that um, there were people that like basically read a book about it and said, okay, there's some good information here, how can I use this to benefit me?
Hmm.
And that is ubiquitous. It is, they learned a little bit of the good stuff and they're like, now how can I use this in my
Right.
benefit?
And that could be any
Um,
religion. I see that in all religions. People think they can call themselves one thing, and they're not fully that because they're not really digging deeper. They're just read one passage or something.
exactly. Yes. And the consequences of that are obvious. Like I said earlier, like you see people that think that they are the master of their own of their or the captain of their own ship, so to
Hmm.
speak, and they're not. And you can see it in their eyes, and you can see it in the way that they behave, and the way that they behave impulsively. Um, and that just it didn't jive with me at all. Like I quickly was retreated back to my books because I was like that's just
Were
it's
the
dangerous.
were the
And
parties were the
the
parties weird?
it,
Like, was there weird stuff happening at the parties?
yeah, from like different break off rooms where they do little spells and seance circles to different sexual indulgences. And these things will often present themselves as fun, lighthearted, and appealing, and everything like that. But then that's when they start these energies and these seemingly harmless indulgences are all fine at first.
Hmm.
The same way that any addiction or any spiritual attachment seems benign at first, but then you seek more and more novelty, and you get deeper and deeper, and then eventually you find yourself in a room where you're presented with a task that is not going to be good for your soul, and it's basically too late at that point. And I was fortunate to see the writing on the wall way sooner and to get out of that. But that's that stuff is very real, and it very much exists once you get to the higher level of these groups, people that and it's not dissimilar to anything that would happen at a whatever at Jeffrey Epstein's little pagan palace with the blue stripes, or at a Diddy
Hmm.
party or something.
Right.
Uh, and even that is not as bad as it goes. I'm sure of it,
Oh yeah.
because once you get on that path, you if you get past a certain point, you take it to its full conclusion, uh, which is something that I try to not even think about.
Yep. Oh, that evil exists.